Okay, McKenna shortage of willing workers. McKenna pit solution declining population. McKenna waits in on Harper. Immigration, pipeline, shale gas. Looks like Frank is a little bit upset with the way New Brunswick is heading. Now, I need somebody to hold my camera here. But anyway, Frank, this is an email to Frank McKenna. Yes, an email. Frank came a long way. Renowned people in New Brunswick remember the Frank McKenna. Come on, do this right. Okay, remember the Frank McKenna in Newcastle, the lawyer. Frank McKenna, Frank made his name with Yvon Durel, when Yvon Durel was charged with manslaughter. The Acadian fisherman, the boxer, whatever, legend. Anyway, and Frank made his name when he was leader of the opposition in Fredericton, and then Frank became premier because everybody was sick and tired of Richard Hatfield. I'll never forget it, 1987. And Frank won all the seats, 58 seats. All the MLAs were Liberals. I remember meeting Frank for the first time at the shipyard, and I told Frank, I said, Frank, I was well known to write letters to the editor. I started in those days. I say, if you have a pie and you have 58 pieces, all Liberals, how do you plan to make those 58 pieces all happy? You look at me, he says, it's going to be very hard. So Frank is no longer the Frank that renew. Frank is way up there. Corporate board, TD Bank, way up there. And once in a while, Frank lowered himself to talk to the Canadian press or the Irving media to give his views. And Frank really, I'm not going to go into whole detail, but this article in the Irving media, former Frank, I just had my first coffee. Former New Brunswick Premier Frank McKenna says Atlantic Canada desperately needs more immigration or the region will continue to suffer a slow death. Appearing before a preliminary committee on Atlantic immigration Wednesday, McKenna told politicians in Ottawa the region's steady decline could only be reversed by attracting more people to unfilled job position. The key, the federal government needs to make it easier for temporary foreign workers to come to Canada and harder for Canadians to apply for EI. Isn't that nice, Frank? Making it harder for people to qualify for EI. Now that is so nice. See, okay, hold it. Increasing immigration, I want to say clearly, is not without controversy. Who now sit on the Frank McKenna, and who now sit on a number of corporate boards, even the citizens of Atlantic Canada, are less than excited about increased immigration. They often say to me, why the hell do you want to bring people in? We don't have jobs for the people who are here. And that is so true, but there's a reason why a lot of people are not working. Frank, have you ever heard of the Irving blacklist? Anyone that goes against Irving, their whole family, they're on the Irving blacklist. Voila. The Irving blacklist will make sure that you do not work in this province, because the Irvings will go to that company and say, if you don't fire that guy, we are we're going to bail out and you won't make any money. And, you know, I mean, that's the way it is. A lot of people have committed suicide, and a lot of people have left this province. And the Irving Blight list, that's one reason. And plus, they control all the media, so, like what I'm reading here. Increasing immigrant, in his speech, the former Liberal shot out a list of facts to friend New Brunswick. Oh, this should be good. New Brunswick has lost 40,000 people to other part of Canada over the last 30 years. It has the second lowest birth rate in the country, and its death rate began outstripping its birth rate. The latest census showed New Brunswick was the only province to lose population over a 5-year period, and St. John the only major Canadian city to also lose people. Now, come on. One reason we're losing skill, okay, we'll get to that later. St. John, have you already been to St. John, Frank? My God, except going from the limousine or to the fancy car to the Delta. Frank, take a walk around St. John. I mean, it's beautiful. I did that a couple of months ago. 11 o'clock at night. I went around the south end. But you could taste the chemical, Frank. You could taste the chemical in the air in your mouth. I mean, I don't even know why people jog in St. John. Why do you want to invite people to St. John to die? New England, they don't have any refinery. So, to St. John, whoever stays in St. John, they're going to die. A slow and painful death, lung cancer. But they don't come out with that survey. Of course not. Okay, what else are you saying, Frank? Health and based on less an aged population costs more, and the declining population base result in less equalization, fewer transferred for health and education, less money from income tax, and less money from consumption tax. And then we have to care for an aging population, which is much more expensive. Yes, Frank, we're going to be heading for one hell of an eye-opener. Because people are getting old, and it's going to cost a lot of money. University are struggling for students. Yes, maybe the titillation, I'll say it right one of these days, speech impairment. To go to university costs so much money. Maybe we should do the Bernie Sanders thing, you know, like don't free university so our student could be educated. But they're going, there's a lot of students coming from other countries at UNB and St. Thomas. Our high school are sometimes half full, and of course everyone is fighting to keep their school full. And then we have bed blockers in all of our hospital bed blockers. What's that? I don't know. McKenna said New Brunswick had its deficit soar and raised taxes. All measure and just compound the problem by convincing skilled workers to flee out west where taxes are lower. Sorry, Frank, but you know, New Brunswick is the only official bilingual province in Canada. And you know, Frank, I'm bilingual. Je viens de Mermanco, je suis acadien. But we're having Québécois, I didn't say the word moody, coming here. And really, the skilled workers are leaving. Paramedics, the people that save so many lives, they have to speak le français. Paramedics. Je vais mon service en français. So, Frank, a lot of people have skill, but they're forced to leave here because they can't be hired here, because they cannot speak the français. And once they learn, they say, oh, your French is not good enough. La merde. Okay, this is getting too long here, but this is a video for Frank. Temporary foreign workers were desperately needed. Oh, this is good. Foreign workers program was desperately needed for everything from truck drivers to machine operators to production workers and hospitality workers. The region risks leaving thousands of positions unfilled. Frank, do you want all these foreign workers to come here? Excuse me, Frank, have you been hanging around with Donald Trump? You mean all non-union people doing the job with no benefits and just come here and then leave? Come on, Frank, what is your definition of an immigrant anyway? Boy, this is terrible. New Brunswick 1 billion seafood industry now depends heavily on temporary foreign workers. And some business were very upset. Farmer made it difficult. Okay, but telling them to use Canadian workers first, yeah, you treat Canadian with respect. And then there'll be no problem. The New Brunswick Multicultural Council should have a clear path to citizenship, a position that also favored by McKenna. Despite their different Culford, oh yeah, that's a union guy. Patrick, nice guy. We definitely see labor shortage. Okay, everybody's coming out the other side. And like I always said, the immigrants, okay, they want to come here, give them permanent status. Then they can stay here. It grows the population. But we have a problem, Frank. Frank, ain't you the same one that I heard when you were premier? Everybody that was on social assistance had to go out to collect their check. They were all lined up across the river, the north side. If they wanted their check, they had to go there. So, Frank, you got to understand, it's not everyone. I like to work, but I was told that I'm not allowed to work by the New Brunswick Human Rights Commission, which the government fought. But never mind that. We're not talking about me. We're talking about Frank. Frank, okay, goes on. Culford, that's the union, Patrick Culford, again said McKenna had it all wrong. I don't agree there's a shortage of willing and motivated workers in Atlantic Canada, said the labor leader, whose organization has 41,000 members. A lot of people who work in seasonal industry like forestry, tourism, fisheries would love to work year-round at 100% of their wages because they find it hard enough to get by. It's not easy living on EI. Getting 55% of what you normally make. Culford said a better solution in getting more New Brunswickers working would be to introduce universal child care, a program that would convince more women to re-enter the workforce and better skill training. Okay, now, Frank, you are so, I mean, I know you don't talk to us anymore. You're at a different level. We're not, like, I even seen you a couple of years ago. I like that. And you remembered me. And we took a picture, me and David Allward. I told, when you were premier, you would reply to your email. And we always held this connection, Frank. I tried to talk to you, what was it? You were somewhere. And the selfies, the pictures, okay, it's all good to everybody. But Frank, I wanted to question you on an issue. But I was quickly, I mean, you're no longer like us. I was quickly interrupted by high-class snobs that, you know, they thought that I was, you know, that Frank McKenna was in trouble. But Frank, really, if you happen to come back to New Brunswick, never mind the Delta or the Convention Center, send me an email, Frank. Go to Google, write my blog, write my name, Charles LeBlanc. You'll see my email address on top, omazon@yahoo.com. I would love to have a one-on-one with you, Frank, because, you know, just like the old days, but I am no longer the Charles LeBlanc letters to the editor or talk of the town, because letters to the editor, that's all over now. We can still write the letters, not like it used to be, because everybody has social media. And talk of the town, there's no longer any radio talk shows here in this province. But Frank, I would love to sit down with you. And I know you care so much of this province. One question that I'd like to know, Frank, one question I'd like to ask, if you give me an answer. If you care so much, Frank, about New Brunswick, where New Brunswick made the Frank McKenna. New Brunswick made what Frank McKenna was all about, call centers and industries. You even want the pipeline, Frank. You even want shale gas. I mean, but where we made you, Frank, what you are today. A millionaire, the ambassador, you were the ambassador to Washington, from Canada to Washington. You came a long way, Frank. You still care, from what I see, about New Brunswick. Now, answer me this question, Frank. Why would you want to charge $9 million to set up a call center in St. John? And you say you worked 5 years on this plan? $9 million of taxpayers' money to get a call center. Oh, is it in St. John or Moncton? Anyway, there's two of them. But Frank, if you care so much, why do you charge so much? omazon@yahoo.com. Send me an email, Frank. Same email that it was 15 years ago. Well, I'd love to have a little chat via this camera. Thank you.